Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get Well, Live Strong. I'm so glad that you're here. I've got a question for you. Have you ever felt that your body is like falling apart, one diagnosis at a time? I know you feel that way because I talk to sometimes hundreds of people a week, each and every week, and they're all saying the same thing. It shouldn't be this way. I'm sick. I've got this thing. I've got that thing. And on top of this illness, I've got that thing. On top of type 2 diabetes, now I have rheumatoid arthritis. Now I have lupus. Now I have osteoarthritis. They keep getting one illness topped on top of the other, stacked, one illness, one. And so finally, I talk to people almost every single week that they're taking 10, 15 medications and maybe as many as 20 or 30 supplements trying to treat the symptoms that they have. That might be okay if they were getting better, but they're not. And I went through the same thing. On Monday's video, I shared with you 12 maladies that I had, health issues that I had for 45 years. And I was feeling the same way. My body's falling apart. I felt the exact same way that you did and that you are for 45 years. And that thing right there is the reason that I started this YouTube channel to begin with. Man, I would go to the doctor. I'd have pain in my wrist. I'd go to the doctor. He'd say, "Oh, you have carpal tunnel syndrome. We need to operate on that." Okay. I'd go to the doctor. I had a lump in my throat. "Oh my gosh, you've got a tumor in your thyroid. Let's remove that." I'd have pain in my lower belly and I'd go to the doctor and they'd do tests and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, you've got, endometriosis. We have to operate on that." I had a finger lock in place, trigger finger, it wouldn't move. They had to operate on that. They all seemed different. And I accepted that because I would go to this specialist. He would tell me this. I'd go to this specialist about that thing. They'd tell me that. They would treat that one specific illness. They were not treating me. They were treating the illness. But you see, here's the thing. I'm not the receiver or the house for an illness. I'm a human being. I was created by God. So are you. And so we're looking at all of that the wrong way. You see, God created our bodies, this amazing, the Bible says we're fearfully and wonderfully made by God Almighty Himself. And so we are this wonderful creation, and things start happening to our body. Well, for so long, I accepted that when I would get a new diagnosis, when I would get number 5, number 6, number 10, number 12, I would think, well, you know what? This is just a part of life. Well, can I ask you something? Today, as I'm filming this video, it is July 28th, 2026. I am a little over a month old in my 69th year. I'm 69 years old. I don't have a single symptom. So if it is what I assumed, just a part of life, get this one, it's just a part of aging. Well, if that's the case, then how could I, at age 21, have symptoms, at age 25, at 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 67, 68. I had all those symptoms. I had all those illnesses. I had all those maladies. And yet today, at 69, I am totally symptom-free. If that's just a part of life, if that's just a part of aging, then why did I get better? Why did I get better? You see, all of those years when this new thing would occur, this new illness would pop up, I assumed that they were unrelated. I never questioned whether there might be a bigger picture to this. And you know what? Like I told you on Monday's video, neither did the medical profession. They did not question it. And by the way, if you did not see Monday's video, I urge you to go back and watch it. I'll put a link down in the show notes so that you can see it. But here's the thing. There is a different way of looking at health. You see, I remember, I have a medical background. I spent half my life in the medical profession. And this is what we did. You suddenly have symptoms. Maybe you go to the emergency room, right? So the emergency room physician treats you. They do all kinds of diagnostic testing. They call your doctor. They get your doctor in the loop. The doctor, they confer back and forth, and they, come up with a treatment plan together. And then you may have to go see a third person, a specialist of some kind, but everybody was in the loop. Nowadays, medicine is compartmentalized. You go to this doctor, they tell you, okay, I'm going to treat you for that. Well, okay, well, what about this? Well, I don't treat for that. You'll have to go to this kind of doctor for that. And then, you go to that kind of doctor and you say, well, what about this? Well, I don't treat for that. They have to send you to a different doctor for that. And so every single part of the body, the ear, nose, and throat are handled by one doctor. The eyes are handled by one doctor. The arms and the extremities are handled by a different doctor. The endocrine system is handled by a different doctor. The normal everyday ailments, getting a cold and that sort of thing, the sniffles, those are handled by a different doctor. And they don't typically communicate to each other now. And so every bit of that is compartmentalized. And so there is no one that is actually connecting the dots. And that is what has happened with our health. And so the problem is with today is that because nobody is connecting the dots, nobody is questioning, well, could it be because Reba's got hypoglycemia and she's got thyroid cancer and now she's got an endometriosis and she's got carpal tunnel syndrome and she's got Meniere's disease? Could those possibly be related? And if they are, what is the underlying cause of that? And that's the piece that's missing. And that's the piece that God put in my life. And that was the missing link. And that's why I'm better today. All those things that I thought were just a part of life have completely been eradicated in my life. And I'm sitting before you at age 69, healthy, happy, and whole, without those maladies, without those illnesses, without medication, without surgery, without any of those things that would have eradicated those things. Sometimes we get so focused on the individual symptoms that we can't step back to see the whole big picture. Our bodies are so incredibly not only created by God, this magnificent piece of work, but they're so incredibly interconnected with each other. Every part of our body works with the other part, and an underlying issue in one part of our body can and most likely will influence another part, or maybe even every part of the body. And so that is where we are today, and that is what I'm urging you to do. Now, I want to turn to you. I've talked a lot about me in the last video, and I've kind of used me as an illustration right now. But what is it that's going on in your life right now? What is happening? Have you been given a diagnosis of prediabetes? Maybe you're gaining weight and you don't know why. Maybe you're not eating any differently, but you're gaining weight. Could it be age? I don't know. I'm like 70 pounds lighter than I was. So can't be age necessarily. Is your eyesight failing? Are you having roaring and ringing in your ears? Are those things related? Let me tell you something. Things did not change in my life until I took the bull by the horns. I'm the one who said, I've got to figure this out. And so I started trying to connect the dots. And so I began to ask the question for myself, could these things be connected? Could these things be related to one overarching illness. You might not be like me. I found that the overarching condition for me and all 12 of those maladies and more, I just listed a dirty dozen. For me, it turned out to be insulin resistance. Now that sounds really scary. That sounds like it's so awful, and it can be. But I got to tell you, that was the most wonderful news that I had ever received in my life. I bawled like a baby when I came to that point that I discovered that everything that I had suffered from, all those 45 years, was caused from insulin resistance. And do you know why I bawled like a baby? Because I was so relieved. Because it wasn't just a part of life. It wasn't just because I'm growing old. And okay, I'm not going to get real close because I know I have wrinkles. They ain't pretty, right? My hair's grown white instead of auburn red. I know that. I know that I am 69 years old. And I know that I can do some of the things that I used to could do, but I can't do things that I used to. But I can do a lot of things, and I'm not ready to be put on the shelf. I realize my age. I'm not in denial about my age. I'm not in denial about limitations because of my age, but I'm not accepting limitations that have been imposed upon me by a belief system. And a lot of these maladies are not simply a sign of aging. It was not in me, and it's not in you either. And so what about you? How many maladies do you have? How many diagnoses do you currently have? 3, 4, 5, maybe more? How many medications are you taking for those illnesses? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25? Before I connected the dots in my own life, I began to, okay, I've got this symptom, so I'm going to take this supplement. I've got this symptom, so I'll take this supplement. Oh, I've got this symptom, I'll take this herb. And you know what? I have to admit, they helped for a while. But they didn't cure the illness. And then every single time with every single illness, I came to a place that I had to make a choice. Either I was going to have surgery, or I was going to have, be on some type of medication long term. Well, neither one of those appealed to me. But I was at the point that I would take a handful of supplements 3 times a day. Do you know what I'm taking today? I am taking synthetic thyroid hormone because I don't have a thyroid. And so I have to take that every single day for the rest of my life. And I'm taking magnesium glycinate at night to help me sleep. That's it. Those handful of supplements that I was taking 3 times a day are up in a cabinet because I don't need them anymore, because I found the connecting dots. I found the common cause by connecting the dots. And I was able, and when I told you that I was so elated and so relieved when I discovered and when I figured out that I had insulin resistance, the reason that I was so excited is because in almost every case, insulin resistance can be improved, if not completely reversed, which was in my case, solely by diet. No pills, no surgeries. I had another finger that was locking up. This little finger, it was locking up. And I just didn't want to go through it again right now during that time. And I said, I'm just going to wait. Well, then during that time when I was waiting and I was locking and I would undo it, and it was still in the intermittent phase where sometimes it would lock up, sometimes it wouldn't. Do you know that it was during that time that I came to the realization that I was suffering from insulin resistance? Completely changed my diet to a high protein, low carbohydrate, regular fat diet. Go back and watch some of my videos. That explains all that to you. But when I did that, guess what? I no longer have a trigger finger anymore. No intervention, no anti-inflammatories, no natural herbs, no turmeric, ginger, none of that stuff. Just by changing the food that I put in my mouth. And you know what? I remember the last time I went, I've had 4 fingers operated on in 3 surgeries. One surgery, they did 2 fingers at the same time. That last time that I came in, which was the 3rd surgery, finally, my orthopedic surgeon said, Reba, why is this always happening to you? Finally, someone asked that question. And it was because of that and other things that were happening in my life that and quite honestly, at the time, I wanted to say, well, that's what I pay you to answer, not, but it raised the question. Finally, someone raised the question. And now, maybe I'll pass him on a run someday, but I'm not going to need him for trigger finger surgery. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. I began asking questions. Is it possible that this is related? And see, don't assume that your situation is the same as mine, but don't assume that everything is unrelated either. Start asking questions of yourself. Could it be that this is that way? This is that way because they're related to something else. Start asking those questions. Friday, I'm going to share with you the one question that completely changed the direction of my health. So I hope that you'll tune in on Friday. In the meantime, please know that there is hope and there is help. Begin asking those questions and come to the place that you can get well and live strong. Until Friday, God bless.